Welcome into New York Giants Now by Chat Sports. I'm your host, Marshall Green. Give me a follow over on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. Trying to get my Twitter followers up, and I want to be followed by more Giants fans, and I want to be able to follow some Giants fans. So give me a follow and send me a DM saying wide receiver, and I'll know to follow you back from this video. Today's show, we got a bunch to talk about. We're going to take a look at some wide receiver trade targets for the New York Football Giants. I think it's obvious to say that one of the biggest needs for Big Blue heading into this offseason is trying to get Daniel Jones some weapons on the outside. And I think we saw last year that there were some elite receivers traded within the NFL for some pretty hefty price tags. So before we list off the 5 wide receivers and some trade ideas I have, let's roll the clock backward to 2022 and the offseason that was, and look at the players that were traded that I thought had an immediate impact for their team and did wonders. Go back to this trade right before the NFL draft. The Eagles received A.J. Brown. They gave up pick number 19 and a third-round pick. I think if I asked everybody in the room right now, if you could trade your first overall pick and a third overall pick, or third-round pick, for A.J. Brown, I think the consensus would be yes, we would do it. And I think the Eagles absolutely won this deal. The Titans ended up getting Treylon Burks with that first-round pick. If Burks is ever the receiver that A.J. Brown is, the Titans will be very lucky. And now the Eagles are heading to the Super Bowl, unfrickin' What about this one? The Las Vegas Raiders and the Green Bay Packers. The Raiders received Adams. They gave up a first-round pick and a second-round pick. I think it's safe to say that the Packers would say, we wish we would have not traded Davante Adams. And there was another elite wide receiver traded. Tyreek Hill. He was traded for a king's ransom. A first-round pick, number 29 overall, a second and fourth-round pick, and a fourth and sixth-round pick. What's the key with all those? If you want to trade for an elite wide receiver, it is going to take, at minimum, a first-round pick. While I don't think any of the receivers that we're going to talk about on today's show are as good as Tyreek Hill or Davante Adams or A.J. Brown, I do believe they can have the same type of impact they did with their teams, like the guys we're going to talk about with the New York Football Giants. I also think it's key to remember what draft picks the Giants are going to have heading into the 2023 NFL Draft. At the moment, the Giants currently have 9 total picks in the first round. In the NFL Draft. 9 total picks in the NFL Draft. They're going to pick at 25th, and they have their second-round pick at 57, and they have a pick at 89 and 100. One of those coming from the Kansas City Chiefs from that Kadarius Toney trade. They also have a 4th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, a 6th, and 2 7th. 9 total picks. The rumors are, though, that the Giants are going to get 2 more picks from complimentary picks from Evan Ingram in free agency last year, signing with the Jacksonville Jaguars, and Keon Crossan. They're most likely to get a 7th-round pick for them. The idea is maybe that they get a 5th-round pick for Evan Ingram and a 7th-round pick for Keon Crossan, who signed with the Miami Dolphins. We're about to go through 5 receivers that I think the Giants should at least target or talk about in the front office. But first, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. We put out videos every single day on the latest Giants news and Giants rumors. We go live once a week. We do watch parties during the season. Just because the offseason here, it's not the offseason for us here at Giants Now by Chat Sports. Our season is just getting started. Videos every single day. Going to be live for NFL free agency, live for the NFL draft. It's going to be a lot of fun. Hit that sub button and lock us in. Let's talk about the one wide receiver that has been linked to the New York Giants the absolute most since the season ended, and that is Tee Higgins, the wide receiver for the Cincinnati Bengals. The thought process is the Bengals still have to pay Joe Burrow. They still have to pay Jamar Chase. There are a lot of people they have to pay, and people are wondering, will they have enough money to trade for Tee Higgins? Or to keep Tee Higgins, and would they have to look to trade him? When you look at what Tee Higgins has done in his young NFL career, he's been in the league just 3 years. He's been great. 74 grabs this past year, over 1,000 yards, 7 touchdowns. He's a big play receiver. I think we saw that in the AFC Championship game on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. and the Cincinnati Bengals just throw him a jump ball up the right sideline, and Tee Higgins climbs the ladder and goes and gets it. He's been great in the postseason as well. In 7 postseason games, he has 31 receptions, 457 yards, and 3 touchdowns, and almost 15 yards per catch. Like the trades we showed you a second ago, it is going to cost the Giants a pretty penny if they do want to trade for a guy like Tee Higgins. Remember, we showed you what other teams paid for wide receivers in the past. I want to hear from you, though. Would you make this trade, trading their first overall pick for the New York Football Giants and a 2024 third-round pick for Tee Higgins? So you get Tee Higgins, you give up 2 draft picks. That's a 2024 third-round pick and your first-round pick this year. That is number 25 overall. Would you make this trade? Type T for trade, type P for pass. I want to hear from you guys. I see a lot of people in the comments saying pass right now. Look, you're not getting an elite wide receiver for cheap, and I don't understand how you can say the Giants don't need a receiver. But let me know, T for trade, P for pass. What about another player that had their season ended in the championships round of the NFL playoffs? What about Brandon Aiyuk, the wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers? Like Tee Higgins, the thought process for Aiyuk is at some point the 49ers are going to have to pay the piper, and you cannot continue to have the 10 highest paid players on your roster. Trent Williams, Eric Armstead, Fred Warner, George Kittle, Nick Bosa, Travarius Ward, Christian McCaffrey, Trey Lance, Deebo Samuel, all these players that the Niners are going to pay and have to pay. How are they going to be able to afford a guy like Brandon Aiyuk? And I think it goes a little bit deeper than that. The 49ers do not have a first-round pick in the NFL draft. They're not going to have much cap space at all to adjust this roster. They have a couple of third-round picks, but they do not have a first-round pick coming up in this draft. So if you're John Lynch and Kyle Shanahan, do you ask yourself, what if we trade Brandon Aiyuk for a first-round pick? We get to save some money, pay some other guys, and get a first-round pick, draft a receiver, and build him in with the new quarterback that's coming in. Look, Brandon Aiyuk is an elite wide receiver. 78 grabs, over 1,000 yards, 8 touchdowns. I think if you were to play for a better quarterback than a guy like Brock Purdy or Josh Johnson or Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance, he would be able to put up elite numbers. These are already really good numbers, but I think Brandon Aiyuk has the potential to be a 90-plus catch guy, 1,200 yards and 10 touchdowns as the featured number 1 wide receiver on a team. I do think, though, that it would cost, at minimum, a first-round pick for Brandon Aiyuk. What about a guy that used to be the best wide receiver in the NFL and one that's not going to cost you, at least in the trade value chart, nearly as much as Tee Higgins or Brandon Aiyuk? What about a guy like DeAndre Hopkins, who's pretty much, him and the Arizona Cardinals have agreed to part ways. DeAndre Hopkins will not be playing for the Arizona Cardinals next year. Last year in 2022, missed 6 games due to a suspension. And in 9 games, he put up 64 catches, 717 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Hopkins is elite. He may be a little bit older, getting closer to 31 years old, but he's still a dominant wide receiver on the outside that completely changes the way a defensive coordinator can call their game to try to stop them. I don't think it would take a first-round pick. I think you're looking at more a second or third-round pick for a guy like DeAndre Hopkins. Last year in 2021, he had 42 grabs for 572 yards and 10 touchdowns. But before that, 3 straight years of 115, and 104 catches, all over 1,100 yards, over 6, 7, 11 TDs. DeAndre Hopkins is still one of the best receivers in the NFL. And I think D-Hop's trade value is interesting because I don't believe it's going to take a first-round pick to trade for him. I think you might be able to get him for a second-round pick, maybe even a third-round pick, maybe a third and a fifth or second and a seventh. Look, the NFL draft, it's a crapshoot. If you're telling me right now you wouldn't trade Wan'Dale Robinson for DeAndre Hopkins, I'm going to ask what you should be, what drugs you're using and what if you're using drugs, because I know we like to put these draft picks on a pedestal, but 50% of the time early in the draft, you miss on those first-round picks. You know who you're not missing on? Proven talent like Hopkins, proven talent like Aiyuk, and proven talent like Tee Higgins. Joe Shane, I wouldn't say he did that well in his first year as general manager in the draft. I know it's only 1 year, and we don't want to overreact too much, but man, you got to get an elite receiver on this team. If that's in the draft, that's fine. But you definitely have the ammunition to go do it in a trade. So I'll ask you to pick a wide receiver. Pick a wide receiver for me right now in the to trade for. Remember, I want you to think about what would it cost to get one of these guys, and then think about it. Aiyuk, you're going to have to give a first-round pick. I think Hopkins is a second or third-round pick. So think about that when you answer this question. Pick a wide receiver, type Brandon Aiyuk, or BA for Brandon Aiyuk, or DH for DeAndre Hopkins. We're going to get to two more wide receivers I think could be on the trade market coming up. But first, I want to tell you about our proud sportsbook partner, BetUS. Go to chatsports.com/bet, promo code chat125, and get 125% deposit bonus when you use that promo code at chatsports.com/bet. Shout out to BetUS, the number one sports book in the game. I use it all the time. You're going to make some money like I am over there. Go to chatsports.com/bet. Use promo code chat125. What about a guy that's on a team right now that doesn't have a quarterback, that their run in their championship window has officially closed? What about Mike Evans? What is the point of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers holding on to a guy like Mike Evans if Tom Brady's out the door? You just lost your offensive coordinator. Your head coach is in his second year, and I wouldn't be shocked if he's fired after this season. I love the idea of Mike Evans, a guy that, according to producer Rolly, is going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer. 77 grabs for over 1,100 yards last year. How many years straight is it of 1,000 yards, producer Rolly?
Every year of his career.
Every year of Mike Evans' career, he has had over 1,000 yards receiving. 13 touchdowns in 2020, 14 touchdowns in 2021. What happened when the Giants gave Eli Manning a player like Mike Evans that could stretch the field and go up and grab it on top of someone's head? His name was Plaxico Burress. Could Mike Evans be Plaxico Burress to Daniel Jones? We knew it was good. We thought it'd be Kenny Golladay. It didn't happen. You're not getting Mike Evans for cheap, though. That's for sure. Would you trade pick number 25 for Mike Evans straight up? That's all I think it would cost you. A straight up number one pick. Would you trade pick number 25 for Mike Evans? Type Y for yes, type N for no. He's never gone less than 1,000 yards in his career, and he has 2 seasons of 13 and 14 touchdowns. Sound off in the comment section down below. A name that we talked about at the NFL trade deadline is someone that I'm a big fan of, and that's DJ Moore for the Carolina Panthers. I like what DJ Moore can do because I like how he can line up in the slot. He can line up outside. He can come in motion and take a handoff behind the line of scrimmage. He is an elite playmaker. And as Joe Shane has said, what he looks for in his wide receivers, he's a generator with the football in his hands. When you look at what DJ Moore has done the last 4 years of NFL career, prior to this year, with playing with absolutely terrible quarterbacks, to be quite frank, he's played with terrible quarterbacks his entire NFL career. But he had 1,000+ yards in 2019, 1,000+ yards in 2020, 1,000+ yards in 2021. This guy is special. I would love for the New York Football Giants to go after him and see if he's available. They have a new head coach there. Could they be looking to go into an asset accumulation type of mode for this franchise? I don't know if you'd have to give up a first-round pick for DJ Moore, maybe a second and a third-round pick, but, man, at some point, I see a lot of people in the comments saying right now they don't want any of these wide receivers. You know what I don't want? Richie James, Isaiah Hodgins, and Darius Slayton as my number one wide receivers. Look at the teams that played this past weekend in the championship series. The Bengals, they have 2 number ones. The 49ers, they have 2 number ones. The Eagles have 2 number ones, and the Chiefs have Travis Kelce and Patrick Mahomes. If you think you can win big-time games in the playoffs without having great weapons, I have a tough time understanding if you get it. That's just what it comes down to. I want you to pick a wide receiver out of these 5 to trade, though. And when you do, think of what it would cost to trade for him. Type TH for Tee Higgins, BA for Brandon Aiyuk, DH for DeAndre Hopkins, ME for Mike Evans, or DJ for DJ Moore. Also, remember to give me a follow over on Twitter at @MarshallGreen_. I'm seeing some people are mad at me because I want to trade picks for proven talent. It's okay. Yell at me over on Twitter at Marshall Green _.